If you've ever experienced a glitch in the Matrix, please consider sending it my way by going to astheravendreams.com and clicking the button to do so. And also, today's video actually features a very special guest. Today's video features Killer Orange Cat. So please, make sure you show them the love that you would show me, as always. Check out their channel, it's linked down below. Their channel is much larger than mine, so they probably don't need me promoting them, but, you know, I'm going to, because they were nice enough to be a part of this video. And of course, thank you to Killer Orange Cat, and thank you to you. Hello, Raven, and hello to my fellow Matrix dwellers. I've been listening to your podcast for a while, and I wanted to start by saying thank you for telling these interesting stories. Because of you, I've grown fascinated by glitches, and honestly, these episodes have helped me get through a countless number of boring days at the office. However, today, I have my own story to share. It may not be as jaw-dropping as some of the others that you've read, but it's been messing with me, and I would appreciate some outside perspective. You actually read a story recently about a person that had weird dreams, and it kind of inspired me to type this up for you, so I guess thank you as well to that person. A bit of background to start. I work as a tech support person for a software company, and I deal with an array of issues. These issues range from my laptop caught fire, which, yes, was a ticket that we once got, to I forgot my password or I can't log into the servers. Every day brings its own set of random challenges, but one ticket that I had to take care of here recently stands out, as it was, well, weird. A few weeks ago, I had this really strange and vivid dream. Nothing out of the ordinary at first. It started as just one of those normal work days in dreamland kind of dreams. In the dream, I was called by a coworker whom I'm going to call Emma. Emma called me and asked me to come over as she was having a bit of a strange issue with her system. The weirdest part of all this was the level of detail in the dream. I remember walking to her desk. I remember her describing the issue. I remember sending a text to one of the higher level techs because I was thinking that this was related to a specific server issue we'd had the day prior. And, come to find out, it was. I remember that during the troubleshooting and repair, I needed to ask Emma for her password. This is something that we typically do not do in support, but very specific issues with the authentication server sometimes require us to input the password from our systems. But it gets weirder. In this dream, I asked her for the password, and she told me that it was PurplePangolin, with capital P's, 619 exclamation point. Not exactly a common and easy to guess password. Now fast forward a week, I get a call from Emma, and she tells me that she's having a really weird issue with her system. I walk over to her desk and we start talking about the problem. Not once do I even think about the dream while this is happening. She starts telling me what's going on. I'm watching her go through the steps to replicate the issue, and then I grab my phone to shoot a text. The second I unlock my phone, I get hit with the memory of the dream rushing back to me. I'm just standing there staring at my phone, swimming in this awkward feeling of surreal deja vu. I actually cut her off mid-sentence, not intentionally, but I did so and I asked, "Wait, Emma, I'm sorry, but is your password PurplePangolin 619 exclamation mark?" It was weird to ask, I know, and after I asked it, I felt incredibly stupid. But Emma just kind of stared at me with her mouth open, like she was shocked. She asked, "How did you know that? Did you get that from watching me type it?" I couldn't help but laugh, partly out of relief and then partly out of pure bewilderment. I responded with, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you," and tried to just shake the moment off. I then mentioned that it was a good password, but since I knew it, I recommended changing it if she felt uncomfortable with me knowing it. And then I went through the steps to get the problem that she was having fixed. Afterwards, she kind of poked me to figure out how I knew her password, and I told her that I just kind of knew it. Thankfully, she's not the type to think that I'm weird or anything for having this situation happen, and when I explained it to her, she laughed and said that it was really crazy. Crazy as it was, I've been trying to rationalize this occurrence ever since. I've never experienced prophetic dreams or anything of the sort before, but the specificity of this dream, the password, the issue, the person, contacting an upper-level tech to confirm the issue, and the way that it played out in real life, it was nearly the same as the dream. I can't seem to quite wrap my head around it. I know that dreams can be weird, that our brains can make something out of our daily lives, but this dream seemed like something else altogether. It's definitely left me questioning some things, much like the other stories you've told. Is our world really as solid and predictable as we would like to believe? Or is it more malleable, subject to unseen forces? Whatever it may be, I'm not going to be forgetting this glitch anytime soon. That is, unless my own personal Agent Smith comes around and wipes my memory. It was December of 1992 when I was 22 years old. A large group of friends and friends of friends, about 15 of us, decided to go Christmas shopping. There's a large shopping center about 10 miles away that has every kind of shop in it. So, we hired a minibus taxi and off we went. We got dropped off at the metro train that takes you directly to the shopping center. Being close to Christmas, it was incredibly busy. There was a long queue at the ticket counter, so we decided to go to the self-service ticket machine, where the queue was a bit smaller. It was noisy. People were everywhere, and metro trains were coming and going with people getting on and off, with bags of Christmas presents. We were laughing, chatting, and helping each other with the right money for the machine. When it was my turn, I put my money in and collected my ticket, as it dispensed from the bottom of the machine. As I looked up again, ticket in hand, I was alone. There was absolutely nobody around. No noise, just one empty metro train sitting at the platform. I was shocked, confused, and scared. I had no idea what to do. I just stood there looking around with growing panic, and then a man in a metro uniform came walking out of the office. I looked at him and he must have noticed my expression because he walked straight towards me. He asked if everything was okay. I just said that I can't find my friends, that they were here and I don't know where they went. He smiled and asked, "Is that them?" And he turned, slightly indicating with his hand. In that moment, the platform was crowded again, and my friends were right there, 2 steps away from me. I looked at them in shock and then turned back to the man, but he had walked away. I walked over to my best friend and asked where everyone went. She just looked at me confused and said, "What do you mean? We've been standing here." I then said, "But all the other people went too. I was on my own." She just asked if I was okay because the platform had been crowded the entire time. I didn't say anything else to anyone, but I've thought about this so often over the years. The whole incident only lasted about a minute or two.
My oldest brother. I hope to understand this someday, but I honestly don't think that I ever will. In order for any of this to be true, then a lot of people would have to be telling me a lot of lies throughout my life. When I was very young, I was the youngest of 3 brothers. I always remember the middle brother, Scott, was always a bit of an ass. The memories are very, very sketchy because they are from when I was younger than 6. But Scott would always take things from me, punch me on the arm, and just generally make fun of me. But if our oldest brother, John, was around, he would always keep Scott in line. Scott was about 5 years older than me, and John, well, I honestly don't know how old John is or was at the time. Yeah, that probably seems a bit weird, but that's why this story is a glitch. From what I can remember, about the age of 6, I stopped seeing John. And it wasn't like he went away or stayed somewhere. He just wasn't around anymore. Scott would pick on me, and I would expect John to come and defend me. But he wouldn't show up. I always liked to sit by John at the dinner table, but he was never there anymore. There wasn't even a chair or place setting for him. He just vanished off the face of the earth. I know it's hard to really know which memories are accurate when you're that young, but I remember asking my family what happened to John. Why wasn't John around anymore? They always acted like John never existed at all. In fact, whenever they talked about him, they spoke about him as if he were an imaginary friend of mine. I kept insisting that John was real, that John was my oldest brother, and that I loved him and missed him. I would bring him up for years. It really didn't stop until I was around the age of 10. By that point, I think they actually convinced me that he was just a figment of my imagination. From the time I was 10 on, I simply kept the thoughts to myself. I stopped mentioning him, and I guess everyone just thought that I outgrew my imaginary friend. But I don't remember him that way. In my view, in my eyes, in my mind, he was real. I can see him with his curly blonde hair. I can see him wearing an Iron Maiden shirt. Hell, I was 6 years old, and I couldn't have known what Iron Maiden even was back then. But I can see John very clearly in my mind, wearing that shirt. My parents both passed away shortly after I graduated from college, so I was never able to bring it up to them again. I have younger brothers and sisters, but John was gone long before they would have known him. Other than me, the only person who would have any memory of him is Scott. When I asked Scott, he insisted that John was just an imaginary friend that I made up to defend me when he bullied me. Scott and I are close now, and I would hope that if John were real, that he would tell me the truth. If John were just an imaginary friend, or to be more accurate, an imaginary brother, why are my memories of him so vivid? Is it possible that John wasn't a brother, but something else? Could he have been a ghost that visited me for a little while? Could he have been some sort of other sort of being? Or like Chuck from Happy Days? Was he simply a real-life brother who walked up the stairs one day and was never seen again? I don't know. I may never know, but I'd really like to. In my mind, I had an older brother named John who disappeared when I was 6. And he didn't just disappear from the house, he disappeared from existence.
I have a small glitch story that happened to me a couple of weeks ago at work, which makes it that much more annoying. Work is stressful enough as it is. I don't need our simulation piling more and more issues onto what I already have to do on a Monday morning. As an accounting analyst, my job involves a lot of back and forth with my manager, Dean. Dean is a temporary lead for my team, as the original team lead left the company. And he's also the head of compliance for the teams. Because he's a compliance guy, he's a bit aggressive with our team in making sure that we are getting information to him in proper reports and in good time. On this particular Monday that I'm referring to, I was just setting up into my normal Monday routine, sifting through the emails, getting my task list ready for the week, when my desk phone started beeping. I glanced at the caller ID and saw that it was Dean's desk phone. I picked up, expecting the usual rundown of tasks for the day. Instead, Dean asked me for a specific compliance report concerning a project that we had been working on. He said that he needed the report right away, which was one of the things that was strange to me. Dean is a very detail-oriented manager, and he plans things out. He knows what he needs when he needs it, so for him to say that he needed it urgently was a bit strange, but not impossible. I told him that I would get it to him within the hour. He thanked me and we hung up. So, I got to work swiftly compiling data and printing out the report, which I will say was not an easy task. Carrying the freshly printed report in hand, I headed towards Dean's office, expecting to find him at his desk as always. But, to my surprise, his door was open and the office was completely dark. Thinking that maybe he'd called me and stepped into a meeting or something, I walked over to Bob's office, another manager who usually knows what's up. When I asked him where Dean was, he looked at me a bit confused and mentioned that Dean was on vacation for that week, and that he was due back next Monday. I blinked, surprised, and told him that I got a phone call just a bit ago for the report. He shook his head and just said, "No, he's not in for the week, so that can't be right." Feeling increasingly confused, I returned to my desk to check my phone's call log. I expected there to be a call there at 8:35 a.m., but as I scrolled through the calls, there was nothing for that morning. The last call that I'd had from Dean was on Thursday afternoon. I just kind of sat there and stared at my report that I was holding in my hand, the one that Dean had supposedly asked me for about an hour prior. I wasn't sure what to do with it, so I just put it in my desk drawer and decided that if he needed it when he came back, I would have it. The rest of the day passed in a bit of a blur, with me unable to shake off this unsettling feeling this left me with. I don't know why I got this call. I know that it was my boss's voice. I know that he requested something that he would normally request, but in the end, I confirmed with him that he never called me. And I have no idea what all this was, nor do I have any answers for it, but at least I got an interesting story to share.
the window. Honestly, I would never have thought to even call this a glitch in the Matrix. I always just thought of it as being the most terrifying coincidence ever. I was home alone overnight at the age of 15. My parents were visiting relatives, and after a lot of discussion, I convinced them that I was old enough to be by myself for a few days. They were reluctant, but went ahead and allowed me to be alone. I was having a pretty decent night. This was in the 1980s, and I had an Intellivision. I was up very late, playing it in my room. I must have lost track of time, because it was very, very late. For some reason, I glanced over at the clock and saw that it was 2 a.m. I had gotten completely lost in the game. I can't explain exactly why I did what I did next, but for some reason, I got up and I walked over to the window. I opened the window and looked down. My room was on the second floor, and the screen had been removed from the window when I was younger. When I looked down, I saw a man wearing a mask climbing up a ladder that he had placed against the wall of my house. Terrified, I was about to scream, but instead, I just woke up in my bed. I realized that I was just having a really vivid and bad dream. After I calmed down a bit and got my heart rate lowered, I actually heard a noise outside. I was already on edge still from the dream, but I decided to go and check out and see what was going on. I opened up the window and looked down. I saw a man wearing a mask climbing up a ladder that he had placed against the house. This time, when I tried screaming, I actually was successful. For a moment, I was hoping that I was still dreaming and I would wake up, but I was awake. My screams were loud, and almost immediately, the lights in our next-door neighbor's house came on, and someone looked out the window. Obviously, the would-be intruder hadn't expected me to be awake, nor my screams to wake up the neighbor. I almost assumed that he probably thought no one was home, because our car had been gone for a few days. But only halfway up the ladder, he knew his plan was shot, and he jumped down, left the ladder, and ran off. I cannot explain why I had that dream. I cannot explain why the man looked like and was doing exactly what the man in the dream was doing. But if I hadn't had the dream, who knows what would have happened to me. Thank God the Matrix has glitches.
I wanted to share a really strange thing that happened in my home that left my son and I in a state of confusion. He's a slight bit young to understand things like glitches in the Matrix, but even he knew that it was weird, because he very enthusiastically said so when all was said and done. Me, on the other hand, I know that something really strange happened in our timeline, or reality, or whatever, and I have zero explanation for it. My partner works the graveyard shift, and she leaves for her job around 9 p.m. when we put our son to bed during the week. But on this night, he was off school the next day, so we let him stay up later. We saw my partner off, and my son and I went to play some Mario Kart. After him kicking my butt in Star Cup for half an hour, we heard the distinct sound of keys jingling and unlocking our front door, followed by the unique shuffle of my partner's walk. Intrigued, we paused the game, and I got up to step out into the hallway, ensuring that it was indeed her returning early from work. I was a bit surprised to see her, but also glad that it was just her coming back early and not someone breaking in or something. She acknowledged me, mentioned that she'd forgotten her lunch, and then on the way through to the kitchen, she passed by our son. She waved, saying, "Hey bud, keep kicking her butt for me, okay?" Opened the fridge, grabbed her lunchbox, and then walked back out without saying much more. After a few more games of Mario Kart and losing to him non-stop, I decided that it was probably time to call it a night. Pretty well reassured that I'll never beat my 10-year-old at Rainbow Road. All was fine until the next morning made things really confusing. My partner had gotten home that morning around the same time that I had woken up. I had made breakfast for us, and then made a comment about Mario Kart, and said that our son had indeed kicked my butt like she requested. When I said that, she had a puzzled look on her face and asked, "Did I say something about that before I left for work?" I laughed and said, "No, you made the comment when you came back to get your lunch." This made things even more confusing. She said that she never came home after she left, that she didn't even take her lunch because her boss was going to have pizza delivered for them that day. Eager to prove her wrong, I called our son, who had just gotten out of bed, and asked him about the night prior. He mentioned that he remembers her coming home to get her lunch as well. She was adamant that she never came home for lunch, that her lunchbox with the sandwich that she had made and originally planned to bring was still in the fridge. Sure enough, she was right. As our last stand to prove that we weren't going crazy, I checked our camera's footage during the time when she would have come home and left, but it actually did the opposite. We watched the footage on my phone, and there was no point at all up until that morning that showed her walking up to the door or coming home. Her car left at the normal time and didn't come back until the morning. My son and I were dumbstruck, unable to deny that we both remembered something that seemingly never happened, that we both saw my partner come home about an hour or so after leaving. How had we both seen this when there was no physical proof that it actually happened? And she states that she never came home. The whole thing is actually kind of haunting, because who had we seen? Who had we talked to? Was this my partner from a different timeline? Or had my son and I shifted or something? Regardless of any possible explanations, the inexplicable encounter with a copy of my partner that came home but seemingly never existed is something that's been deeply imprinted on my mind. I was about 6. My older brother and I were, for some reason, chasing our pet cat from the second floor to the first. We were all running towards the screen door in our dining room when, suddenly, our cat was now on the outside of the screen door looking back at us. My brother immediately stopped running and went into the kitchen. I stood at the screen door in our dining room staring at our cat, wondering how she got out there without the door being opened. In my confusion, I was trying to figure out how someone had let her out so quickly. How was this possible? Weeks, or months later, I brought up the incident to my brother like, "Remember when we were chasing Sophie and then suddenly she was on the outside of the screen door?" He said he didn't remember a thing, and that it must have just been a dream, but I know that it wasn't. I know that I was wide awake. Incidentally, in his 20s, my brother developed schizophrenia, and after suffering for 10, he finally sought help and was put on medication. He's missing a lot of memories about himself now and the person he was before his medication. I miss the old him. A lot. But that's another story. so that, my friends, was yet another collection of strange, weird, mysterious, uncertain, and moderately obscure stories from our simulation. That's right, it was a collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories, if you hadn't caught that, for my strange use of synonyms. Don't need to do that, Raven, but let's do it again anyways, someday. Probably next week. Yeah, good stories, fantastic collection. And, of course, I would like to take another moment to say a huge thank you to Killer Orange Cat for being willing to work with me and being featured on this video. Again, show them the love you would show me as always. Please check them out. Killer Orange Cat is an amazing person. Very friendly, very straightforward and fun to talk to. We haven't spoken a whole lot, but in the times that we've spoken, I would say we've definitely established a decent friendship, in my opinion. Maybe Killer Orange Cat has a different opinion on that, but my opinion is it's been good conversations. And again, thank you so much for being in the video. Really appreciate it. I don't feature many people, but I was very excited to feature them, so. And of course, thank you, my dear listeners. If you got to this point, that means you listened to the whole video. And of course, it means you're amazing. And it means you probably liked the video. So if you would, please hit that thumbs up button, as it does tell me that you liked the video. You can also hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel and enjoyed what you heard. I do glitch stories typically every Monday. Other stories throughout the week, but glitch is my main staple on every week, so. You can also do super thanks or join Patreon membership, which is further supporting the channel. Patrons and members get extra content, extra stuff like that. And then, of course, there's the reason that everyone listens to this point of the video and watches to this point of the video, as on screen right now, you'll see sentences, comments, screenshots of comments left by beautiful people like yourself. These people went above and beyond and left me a comment last week on the video, on the glitch video specifically, with the word of the week. They did not strain to make these sentences, they just let them out. Maybe they did strain, I don't know. But that was the word, so. To each and every single one of you who left me a sentence last week, thank you so very much. If you didn't get around to it or chose not to do so, that's okay. I still appreciate you. Now, moving on to this week's word of the week. It might be a little bit murky whenever I tell you what the word is. That's right. The word of the week is murky. I shouldn't do that. It's so lame. Anyways, word of the week is murky. M-U-R-K-Y. You can also use murkier, murkiest, murkily, murkiness, any word that is rooted with murky. So, definition. Characterized by a heavy dimness or obscurity caused by, or like that caused by overhanging fog or smoke. Characterized by thickness or heaviness of air, like foggy and misty, or darkly vague or obscure. In other words, whenever I do these outros, what I'm trying to say is murky at best. That's right. Anyways, friends, I hope you all have a beautiful week. I hope your Monday goes amazingly, and I hope I do see you again soon. But of course, remember that you are loved, you are valid, you are important. You're the best you that you can be. Never let anyone tell you otherwise, and don't you forget it. And until next time, my friends, much love, and sleep well.